Almost fucked that up.
Yeah.
I got it, though.
Got it. What's up, guys? Welcome to Save Continue Podcast. My name is Ryan Robinson. This here's Tom Shelby.
Hi, guys.
Shanae's,
Absent.
Anyway, we get together every week and talk about video games and shit. We're feeling good today. I want to talk to Tom. Tom, how are you feeling?
Pretty good. I'm a little sleepy.
Yeah, I'm a little sleepy too.
But I'm good.
I overslept this morning. That was because I was up too late playing video games.
What were you playing?
Borderlands and Mortal Kombat.
That's right.
Yeah.
Border Combat.
Uh-huh.
Be a very different game.
You know, I thought about who I would want in Mortal Kombat. And I think it would be really cool if Doom Guy was in Mortal Kombat.
That is actually a pretty good fit.
Yeah, I thought it would be really cool if Doom Guy was in Mortal Kombat.
I'd rather see a Kako Demon.
Just floating back and forth.
Yeah. Could play like MODOK from Marvel 3.
Like, you could incorporate like a bunch, like I would say 3 of his weapons.
Yeah.
Not counting the chainsaw.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Kako Demon.
Oh. Well, does Kako Demon have more than Fireball and Bite? I feel like all he has is Fireball and Bite.
You got these horns.
He never uses them, though. He just fireballs and bites.
In Mortal Kombat, he'd probably use them.
Sure.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like obviously Doom Guy can punch real damn hard. But he would also have a shotgun. I bet he would have his rocket launcher, his chainsaw, and
Rocket launcher.
And maybe his machine gun.
Sure.
But I think that'd be really cool. And I think his fatality would be him just dismembering you with his bare hands. You'd only need one fatality because he's really awesome.
Fatality would have to be BFG.
Okay, so he'd have one where he dismembered you with his bare hands, and then the other one would be BFG. He'd shoot it at you, or he could like open a portal to hell and push you through it, and then the demons would rip you apart.
I think like the BFG fatality, like it loads up on him, holding it, pointing it at the opponent.
Yeah,
and then it cuts to the opponent's side, and it's the entire roster because it clears out a room.
Yeah, and so everybody dies.
Yeah.
It'd be because and then you think about like everybody's and you go through the tower mode, and everybody's ending is based around their ability to go back in time and change stuff or whatever. I wonder I think he would go back in time just so he could do everything that he just did again.
Sure.
Because he relishes the combat.
Is he pixelated when he goes back?
Yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah. So I was just up really late last night playing Mortal Kombat. I've been practicing a lot of time. Like you told me that because I've said this before that I'm a fledgling fighting game fan. My interest in the genre has increased significantly over the past year. And I can't really point to specifically what kind of spurred that on. I think that you getting me Street Fighter V definitely was a catalyst to that, but and I think you only did that because I expressed some kind of interest in fighting games.
Yeah.
But over the past year, I'm fascinated by it. Not just by like not just by playing them, but like one of the things that I like about fighting games, and I think that a huge component of fighting games is the amount of strategy involved. And I feel like when I win in a fighting game, I feel like it's because I outsmarted my opponent a lot of the time. Like I thought 3 steps ahead when he was only thinking 2 steps ahead or something like that.
Sure.
And I think that the thrill of victory in a fighting game is not something that I've felt in any other genre. I think about the times that I've won at first person shooters, or I've won in other genres, and it never felt like the way it feels when you beat someone in a fighting game. Especially someone who is better than you, from a skill standpoint, and you somehow still come out on top because they miscalculated or they got complacent or whatever.
I think that has a lot to do with Like, I get the same feeling from fighting games as when I win in a puzzle game.
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with the fact that it's one-on-one
Right.
rather than a team. And winning with a team can be very fulfilling as well.
Sure.
But yeah.
I showed you a video recently of someone who I was playing, because I main Jax in Mortal Kombat 11, and he was playing as Garrus. And he was very good with his character. He definitely knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah.
And there's something about, so for those of you who don't know, in Mortal Kombat, starting with, I don't remember when it started, but like it started like at least a decade ago, where you could do mercies. Instead of doing a finishing move, you can show mercy on your opponent one time, give them a portion of their health back, and they could get another chance at winning. And the only time people do mercy, or only time where people do a mercy, is when they feel confident that if they gave you your health back, they could just beat you again.
Sure.
And I feel like it's kind of it's a way, I think, of showing dominance. And I think in a way that, because I feel like it's a kind of showing off.
It's a taunt is what it is.
Yeah, like, because like, I think fatalities were always meant to be like just rubbing your face in it, and kind of just, kind of putting an exclamation point on the fact that, hey, I just beat you.
If you boil it down to what it is at its core, it's a taunt, right?
Yeah.
I understand that it gives the other character a second chance and some life back, right? But what is a taunt in a fighting game?
Yeah.
It's an animation that basically gives the other opponent a chance to get in.
Right.
And that's what this is doing.
Yeah.
You know?
And so there's a definitely when you're on the receiving end of a mercy, like there's definitely a feeling that it invokes that I think it is meant to invoke. And I think that a lot of the time when watching other people be on the receiving end of it, it seems like that kind of emotion kind of affects how they play, like after the mercy takes effect. And they're like, I gotta beat this guy now that he's done this.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a feeling that I had. But I was reasonably certain that he was gonna beat me. And it was a split second of miscalculation on his part, and I capitalized on it, and I ended up beating him.
Well, it's funny too, because like the video you sent me of the match, like he's got, after the mercy, he's got like a 50% life lead.
Yeah.
And you still beat him, It's not like he was close to death and you hit him once.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
And there was
I think had he not had that life lead, he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the feeling that I got when I landed that killing blow on him was just like, it was so like I can't describe it. And I'm the kind of person who, like, if I get matched up with someone online, I will hit that rematch button as many times as they will play against me. You could be like, and I will get beat over and over again until you're done beating me up.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
But like 10, like that one win, was worth the 6 losses.
Sure.
And I expressed to you over text messages like, man, I feel like my skills aren't progressing in the way that I thought they would.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of reinforce the fact that like fighting games are that genre where you got to put a lot of time in.
Oh, it's interesting. I think that's what I like about them, and why a lot of people find them so rewarding, and why a lot of people don't want to play them.
Right.
Because fighting games is one of, not the only genre, but one of the only genres I can think of where it's almost like learning an instrument. Like it really is.
Right.
And that takes time,
Yeah, like tens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours of practicing.
But because of that, it's more rewarding,
Yeah.
And that's why I don't care for the simplification of a lot of fighting games.
Sure.
And by that, I mean like, games where it's like any direction and a button does a move that doesn't have the execution barrier, because the execution barrier is what makes it like learning an instrument.
Sure.
I
heard this. I heard this quote from a retired pro wrestler. I can't remember what his name was. I don't remember who said it, but like because of the nature of pro wrestling, and the scripted nature of pro wrestling, he was like, I've never felt the thrill of victory or the sting of defeat, because outcomes are predetermined, and I feel like that is why that sentiment is also why I've shied away from simpler fighting games. Games that like have been like really, really, really simplified.
Yeah.
Like in the way that you told me that Blaze Strangers have been, because I think that winning in a game like that is cool, and I'm sure that people who play the game, they enjoy winning. But when I play a game like Mortal Kombat 11 or Street Fighter, or games that are like far beyond me, like Guilty Gear or Blaze Blue, I feel like winning in a game like that is like technical and like so full of like those tiny split-second windows.
Yeah,
I feel like that feeling is magnified times 1,000.
And to be clear, like that style of fighting game, right? Whether it's Blade Strangers or Rising Thunder or whatever it might be, I do think that there's still skill involved, right? But those are more about when should I do this, not how and when should I do it. And it's almost just it's almost a different genre, But nothing against them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would get as much out of a game like that versus a game, like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or hopefully Samurai Showdown. Think about it, I haven't played Samurai Showdown since I was maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah. So like, I know 5 Special was not the last one. I know there was an Xbox 360 one, which I did not play. The last Samurai Showdown I can remember playing was on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because like 5 years ago, I mean, hell, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I couldn't recall like enthusiastically anticipating the release of a fighting game. And it feels really awesome, and it feels like it's a pastime that like I'm enjoying more than I could have ever imagined. Like I don't feel like I'm good at fighting games. I don't
either.
But at the same time, like it's just there's nothing like that kind of competition,
Here's the thing that I think you need to realize, and I think that a lot of fighting game players don't realize, is that you are better than average. Even if you're losing a lot, you're better than average, because the average person playing these games can't throw out a fucking special move, And that's nothing against them. They're just not willing to put in the time to learn how to do a Hadouken or whatever it might be.
Sure.
If you're doing basic stuff like that and you understand all the mechanics of the game, you are above average.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about back when I was a kid, and Street Fighter 2 was the fighting game, you know? And I would watch people in the arcade, or I listen to my friends at school talk about it, and like they would talk about doing Hadoukens. I'm like, how do you?
Well, yeah, like back then it seemed like fucking cheat codes.
Yeah, like how do you do a Hadouken? Like how do you know how to do that? And I thought about I would see Art of Fighting in the arcade all the time, and I tried it once or twice.
Yeah.
So in Art of Fighting, like most fighting games of the time, would have after every second or third fight, they would take you to a bonus level. And so one of the in the arcade version of Art of Fighting, you could either be Ryo or Robert, depending on like your preferences. So I always chose Ryo because he's cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, like his bonus level was like he had a fireball, but his bonus level was you had to like there was a board, like a standing board, and you would try to break the board with his powered up version of the fireball. So the inputs were showing me basically it would tell you how to do it, and then the inputs were like half circle forward.
Yeah.
But like that was so many arrows, and I was like, wait, how?
Well, and even a lot of people that don't understand see that input and they think that you're going to press down and then down forward and then forward. Yeah. They're not going to know to roll it,
Sure.
Which is really funny.
Well, that's another thing too, is that I was talking to you about doing combos in Mortal Kombat 11 and how I had gotten better at those combos by realizing that I'm not pushing each button individually.
Right.
I'm sliding my thumb across the buttons.
Yeah, and that I don't quite understand, but I need to watch you do it. You know?
Yeah, so like, and that's not to say that you can't land the combos by pushing each button individually. You just have to you have to be really quick.
I think you're talking about playing with thumb.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, as far as playing, and we were talking before the show about what would the different experience that I would have playing on a pad versus playing on a stick, and like because I can easily visualize playing fighting games, or specifically this fighting game, on a pad because I just been doing it.
Right.
But like for some reason, the idea of playing on a stick is just like the concept escapes me. And the last fighting game that I played on a stick was Tekken 5.
Yeah.
And that's because I spent the money to get the fighting stick with it.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had to.
I mean, the whole thing with arcade sticks is an interesting thing, right? We've had arcade sticks. I mean, fucking the NES had the advantage, right? Like that's technically an arcade stick. But when it comes to fight sticks that were made for fighting game players, I think the earliest example you can look at was either importing from Japan to get a Hori stick, or you could get what was called a Moss stick, and that was probably the most common here in the United States.
Sure.
You can't even find those now.
Right.
Like even on eBay, you can find like one or two that people are trying to sell for like $700. You know?
Do they not make them? Or
yeah, the company's been defunct for years. But like the whole point was, the arcade is where the people were playing these games.
Sure.
So playing on a controller was foreign for them. You know. It's why Smash. It's a large part of the reason why Smash wasn't accepted for a long time, because fighting games were looked at as almost poverty games.
Right.
You know, you couldn't afford to have a console at home,
right.
so you had to go to the arcade, and this is how you played. Right.
Right.
Smash Brothers, obviously, you have a console at home, so these are the rich guys, and that's one of the reasons Smash was looked down upon, which I think is fucking stupid.
Sure.
But it's there. But like, I think for you and even for me, like, did I go to arcades as a kid? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like when I played Street Fighter 2, the majority of it I played on Super Nintendo with a pad.
Right.
So that's what I grew up using, and that's what I was used to. That said, even then, for a lot of things, I used my fingers on the face buttons, not my thumb, you know, which is why people love the Saturn pad so much.
Sure.
Right. And it's why Mad Catz and Hori now have made 6-button fight pads, to try to mimic that.
Right.
But,
So let's talk about the, because you ordered a bunch of parts to build your own fight stick.
I did.
So tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, what do you want to know? Like what I ordered, why I wanted to do fight stick, or like what? So I wanted to do fight stick because I typically play with my fingers on the face buttons.
Right.
I told you, I think it's going to be a learning process. I think my right hand is going to feel great, and I think my left hand is going to be a little bit lost at first.
Sure.
Not that I haven't held an arcade stick, but done it plenty of times. But like for fighting games, it's a little foreign to me.
Right.
So it's going to be some practice for sure. But I think my left hand will appreciate it, because my left hand hurts playing on a pad.
Sure.
I like playing on a pad.
Yeah.
But it's painful at times.
Yeah.
So I was telling you, I looked at retail sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And retail sticks range in price greatly. You can get some for $50. You can get some for $400.
And it's very much you get what you pay for.
Yeah, very much so. But I found that even at the highest that you were willing to spend for a retail stick, which the most expensive stick I could think about now is the Victrix Pro, which is a relatively new stick. It's extremely nice.
Yeah.
But even the higher end sticks cannot do what you can do with a stick that you make yourself.
Right.
So ordering parts, and we'll see how that goes.
So what are you looking when you're building your own stick? Like what exactly are you looking for that retail sticks can't do?
I'm looking for being able to customize certain things, right? Like with most retail sticks, you could change out the buttons and the stick itself.
Right.
I say most because some do not give you enough space in there. If you're getting something like a Wrap 4, which is probably this generation's most common stick, those come with the first generation came with a Hori Hayabusa stick, which some people like, some people hate, and with Kuro buttons, which seems like everybody hates. Now they come with a Hayabusa stick and Hayabusa buttons, which people seem to like. You can change out the buttons, no problem. You can change out the stick depending on what kind of stick you want to put in there. Because it's a plastic body, there's a lot of plastic supports in there to keep it sturdy, which makes sense. To fit certain things, you'd have to cut away some of that plastic, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the time for that shit,
Yeah.
So room in a case, right? So this gives me a lot of room. Any stick, whether I want to put it in a Famitsu or a Sanwa or a fucking Korean stick or a hap stick, right? Hap is what we use in American arcades, hap buttons and hap sticks.
Right.
I could do it. So I'm looking for that because I don't know a lot about fight sticks, right? I'm getting all Famitsu parts. What if I fucking hate those parts?
Yeah.
And I'm just stuck with this stick that I can't mod. This route, well, I don't have to replace the whole thing. I can just replace the buttons, which are dirt fucking cheap. I can replace the stick, which is pretty cheap,
So what makes up the bulk of the cost when you're constructing your own stick?
The PCB, depending on what PCB you choose.
Okay.
And what's that going to determine? It's going to determine your input delay, and it's going to determine what platforms you can play it on.
Right. So can you conceivably build yourself a universal stick?
Yeah, so the PCB I'm getting is the Brooks Universal Fight Board.
Okay.
And it's not universal, but like it works with basically anything last gen and current gen.
Okay, so you can plug into your Xbox, PS4,
Xbox
PC.
360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4, PC, Switch, Wii U, PlayStation Mini,
Right.
Neo Geo Mini, a lot of things. You could then add the Brooks Retro board onto that. Basically, you have two boards sandwiched on top of each other.
Right.
And be able to play things going back to the NES. Not everything, like Genesis, the way that controller connects is a little bit weird, so it doesn't work there, But like Saturn, PlayStation 1, 2, whatever, Dreamcast, GameCube, it all works.
Right.
So I think that's another advantage. Sticks nowadays, the most common you see is PS4 and PC. You see some that are PS3, PS4, PC, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PC,
Right.
But I like the fact that I'll be able to play on basically any platform that I own,
Yeah.
So that's nice because while I'm spending more out the gate for all these parts, I would be spending the money on multiple sticks for different consoles then.
Sure.
Now I don't have to do that. It's also convenient because the body I'm ordering is modular, so if I decide I want to go with a hitbox, which I don't see happening for fighting games, but maybe for rhythm games I'd like that.
Right.
Or for Tetris I might like that,
Yeah.
or a mix box, I could pretty easily and cheaply do that, So I'm excited for that stuff. It's going to be fun.
So are you looking to just increase your, let me ask you this. Does being competitive in your chosen fighting game matter to you, or are you just building it to just enjoy the game more?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by competitive, right? Because like the nature of fighting games is competitive.
Sure, but I mean, would you?
I don't think it's going to instantly make me better.
But are you looking for it to kind of, increase your performance potential in a given fighting game?
Yes, only because I think my right hand will feel better
Okay.
while playing for extended periods of time. And it's also just fun.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of building this thing, Frankensteining it together,
Sure.
making it look however I want it to look.
Sure.
It's a fun thing. Not to mention, like, people look at these controllers, and any controller for that matter, whether it's a racing wheel or a pad or whatever it might be, and say, well, this is good, but like I don't want to buy a controller just for Forza.
Right.
I don't want to buy a controller just for Street Fighter.
Right.
Which I totally get, but like, dude, now literally any beat 'em up I'm going to be playing on this thing.
Right.
It's not just going to be fighting games. It's going to be a lot of arcade games.
Right.
If I play Pac-Man or Donkey Kong, it's going to be on this,
Yeah.
So
That sounds really cool. It's been so long since I'm trying to think about the last time that I actually bought a different controller.
HOTAS.
Yeah, well, I didn't buy that. That was gifted to me.
Okay, that's a nice gift.
Yeah. And I think about like, and when it was gifted to me, I considered buying it, and it is, it would have been a controller that I bought specifically for one game.
Yeah.
But it's like it was like $60. So
Steel Battalion.
Well, talk about buying a controller for one game.
Someone's gonna argue that you can use that in this game and that game. No, you can't.
Yeah. But the idea of buying a controller for one game isn't necessarily very unattractive to me. Especially if I spend a lot of time with the game.
DJ Hero.
Yeah. I think about also, I think about how much time I spend with Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
And like if I take a look at it with like hours played versus dollars spent,
yeah,
then I feel like I'd feel like I'd come out ahead on that. And then I think about racing games, right? So if there's a racing game that I'm really really into,
mm-hmm.
and I can see myself, like if I had the income to back it up, like I could see myself buying a racing wheel specifically for Dirt 4 or whatever
it might be, right? DDR pad, like it doesn't really matter.
But like the idea, and there's something to the idea of doing something like that, and like I think it also depends on how seriously are you into that game, like how much of your video game playing time is dedicated to that game. And I would say that as far as Mortal Kombat 11 is concerned, 95% of my video game time is taken up by that game.
Sure.
So,
and that's the whole thing, right? Like, and I've shown some of this stuff in our Instagram and whatnot. Like, I've modded several controllers. I buy a lot of weird third-party controllers.
Yeah.
And I think it's not necessarily always the smartest purchase, but it's oftentimes like incredibly useful.
Sure.
And like that's your point of contact,
right?
Regardless of what game you're playing, whether it's this keyboard or this mouse or whatever it might be, like that's your point of contact with the game,
right?
So I think it can be very valuable. Yeah, I don't know, and like I don't know that I probably would buy it if I was just playing fighting games on it, but like the fact that I will probably play a lot of other games.
Well, I think that's kind of an added bonus too, right?
Like I'm like Thumper. I will definitely play Thumper on this thing,
Sure. But, and I think it's an added bonus that you can get enjoyment out of other video games with it.
Yeah.
And I don't, and like I said, I don't know that I've ever looked at, like I've been playing on the PS4 for, I don't know, how long has the PS4 been out? 6 years?
A while, yeah.
With the exception of that Thrustmaster that I have, DS4 has been fine.
Yeah.
But that's also because like
we talked about it on our controller input video that like you have to have a universal option, and that's why these consoles ship with a controller, right?
Right.
It makes sense, but
and like but at the same time for the last 6 years, because how many fighting games have come out since
so many,
since the PS4 launched, right?
So many.
And so like I was never into fighting games to the point where I would consider buying another controller, right? Like even like I love Mortal Kombat, right? But like for Mortal Kombat 10, like I was into it, but not to the point where one, I never played that game online, not once. But at the same time, like, and that also like speaks to the fact that like, I was into it, but into it enough to pick it up and play against the computer when I wanted to play it, like, and never against another human. And then
I think we played it locally once.
Yeah,
I think so.
Well, we played it locally a bit when I first got the game.
Yeah.
But like I was never thinking about being competitive with it. I was never thinking about going to tournaments or anything like that. And
me neither. Like not really.
Yeah.
You asked a bit ago, do I want to be competitive? And like no, like I play these games for fun.
Sure.
I like getting online. Sometimes I get my ass handed to me. Sometimes I win a bunch.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. I want to get into the local scene, and that involves going to some tournaments.
Right.
But am I going there with the intent of winning? No, I'm not.
Right. Well, who was it that you said that like if you're not having fun doing it, then you're losing?
Infiltration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot to that. And I've said for a long time that the moment a video game starts feeling like work, I check out.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, there is effort that goes into.
Well, it's funny too because he says this to Mike Ross. Mike Ross takes it extremely personal, and then Mike Ross disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then came back with shaggy hair. Really weird.
There like, don't get me wrong, there is effort to getting good at whatever video game you want to get good at, regardless of the genre or the type of game it is. But at the same time, like, there has to be a balance there, right? Like, you have to enjoy what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, does a certain amount of frustration come from whatever your favorite hobby is? Sure, it has to.
Right.
But that is also tempered by your enthusiasm for it, right? If I love Mortal Kombat. I love playing it. But if at the moment that I pick up the controller to turn the game on, and I'm just going through the motions, that's the last time I played Mortal Kombat.
Well, it's funny you say that, right? Like, I used to be big into competitive Call of Duty, and I really liked Team Optics, specifically Optic Scumpy. So you can go on YouTube and see like old videos of them in the team house, where they're all training together, and they're sitting side by side at a long table, not too dissimilar from this,
right?
With their Xbox controllers, looking at their individual monitors in silence, just like robots, and it feels like a fucking assembly line almost, you know? Yeah.
And like, then you look at it like, are you enjoying what you're doing?
Yeah.
And,
enjoying
again,
that money.
Sure.
That Call of Duty money.
If you're not having fun with it, then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And, winning tournaments and getting money, and like, I'm sure all that shit is really awesome.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you have to think about, like, is this making me happy? And when I think about my time with fighting games and, how I play them and how I approach them, I think about them in that, like, I just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
And so I've taken to I've been getting on Facebook and talking to my friends who have Mortal Kombat, and we set up lobbies and
nice.
And we just play,
I've been doing that with Under Night for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, so we just get on there and we play, like, we win, like, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, and but like, it's always like the whole time we're playing, we're just like, we're talking to each other about like what we did in that last match and our performance, and like we're laughing at each other and stuff like that, and it's a really good time. And I think that if I couldn't have that with the game, there wouldn't be any point. Like, because I could go online and play against people all day, and I have done that, like, just 10 hours one day, just like I just playing on match after match after match, but like. And it is cool it's I enjoy doing that, but at the same time, there's definitely something to like playing with people that and and just like whether they're in the same room or across the country,
right?
Like, playing with people that and talking shit to each other and laughing together. That's where the enjoyment comes from for me.
That's a good point. There's two big reasons I want to get involved in our local FGC. One is that playing locally more, right? With people that obviously I don't know them yet, but
sure.
Hopefully make some friends, right?
Yeah.
And that's cool. And why do I want to play locally? One, because it's people right? Two, because fighting games, I feel like more than any other game, it's way different playing locally than it is online.
Oh, absolutely.
From a gameplay standpoint, because of slowdown, because of audible cues, plenty of Street Fighter players talk about, like, when you're sitting next to your opponent, being able to hear them trying to mash a wake-up Dragon Punch, so what they're going to do because you can hear what they're going to do,
right?
Right. Stuff like that.
And there's this, and like, as hokey as it sounds, there's kind of like a different energy to it.
Yeah.
I like, for example, I get a lot. Like, when you would come over and we played Mortal Kombat for a few hours, and I get a lot out of that versus, if we had been playing when we would play Street Fighter, from like you'd be at your house, I'd be over at my apartment, and like we'd play it, and that was fun. But I always felt like it was always more fun when we were playing in the same room.
Yeah.
And I'm not at the level where I'm picking up on audio cues or anything like that, but
right.
It's more for like.
But like if you knock somebody down and they're getting up, hammering a bunch of buttons,
I know
they're trying to do a wake up attack.
I should block.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think that like it's so weird because I think about my favorite video game genres over the course of my life. And at one point during my childhood, it went from brawlers to JRPGs. And then from JRPGs to first person shooters.
Yeah.
And then from first person shooters to like heavy story driven like experiences like Last of Us and things like that. And now like what am I excited for games like Cyberpunk and Watch Dogs 3? Absolutely.
For sure.
But at the same time, like at this point, like nothing like even like better than anyone else how obsessed I had been with like everything having to do with space.
Right.
And I was like, do I still love Elite Dangerous? Absolutely. Do I still love No Man's Sky? Absolutely. I'm excited to play No Man's Sky in VR when that comes out. But like nothing has like there's like I compare my enthusiasm for the VR announcement for No Man's Sky to my enthusiasm for that Shang Tsung trailer.
Yeah.
And like it's night and day. Like I was excited for VR No Man's Sky, and I absolutely cannot wait for that to come out. But when I saw that Shang Tsung trailer, the first time I heard him say "Your soul is mine," and like I was just like I felt fucking amped, and there's nothing that has matched the like I've been excited for other shit before, but I feel like there's nothing that has matched the kind of excitement that I feel for like all things FGC. And it's just really fun to me.
For me, it's always been, and we've talked about it on the show before. Like I've had friends who you go to their Steam account and you start reading the reviews that they've done on games, right? And they've played X game for 1,000 hours and leave it a bad review. And I'm like, well, why'd you play it for 1,000 hours then? Like literally 1,000 hours. Why would you do that if you don't like it? But like we've talked about, I've mentioned this many times, is that with each generation, I'm excited for everything, right? The Last of Us, Death Stranding, whatever it might be, Doom.
Right.
But those are games that I'm going to play and then I'm going to put down. Right. And then I always have something that I play throughout the course of the entire generation. And that's usually a Tetris or a fighting game or something like that. Now, does that mean I'm playing it every single day? No. But like when I'm bored and I don't want to play something, really involved story-wise, like fighting games, Tetris, whatever it might be, rhythm games, like that's great to just throw on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that value, like, I bought Street Fighter 4, I guess 4 times because I bought different versions of the game as it was iterated on, right?
Sure.
But like the value I got out of that, I probably should have paid them like $600.
Sure. Sure. And then there was that whole. It's funny that you mentioned that. Like, and this is like totally different, but
play that shit for over a decade. Like
well, like it's totally different. But like think about the conversation about the Order 1886.
Yeah.
And how like it's like I would like this is not a $60 game because of like this is how short the game was, right? It was like, well, that depends on like how do you like how
do you value
what do you value, like, because maybe that's a $60 game to somebody.
It was to me,
so you can't like the value, like people tend to like when it's weird because when we talk about video games, not always but very often we talk about money versus time spent. And you just think about like, did I get $60 worth of fun out of the disc or out of what's on the disc?
But I think time spent can be true in one way and not the other. In that, like, I don't think you can say that Order is a bad game not worth $60 because it's 6 hours.
Right.
I do think you can say that my friend who played this X game for 1,000 hours, that's probably a good game. It's probably worth $60.
Yeah.
Like the argument does not go both ways on that, in my opinion.
Sure. And you don't need to play a game for 1,000 hours to know whether it's good or not.
Right. You shouldn't have to.
And really, I don't think you need to play a game for 6 hours to know whether it's good or not.
Like I said, it's like, what do you value, right? I still think the Order 1886 is probably the best looking game on PlayStation 4 currently.
Right.
Is that important to you? To some people it is. To some people it's not. You know.
I think to some people the visuals alone were worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
And because I think that when people say that is not a $60 game, well then you need to think about like what is the value of the effort that went into making that game.
Right.
And I have to imagine that Ready at Dawn would disagree with you.
Yeah.
But it's just, so when I think about like how much I'm willing to spend on fighting game DLC,
yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's bad examples of it, right? Like DOA is a bad example of it.
Sure.
You're being predatory. That's what you were doing.
Right.
But when Street Fighter asks you to pony up for a season pass or fucking Captain Commando skin that does nothing for you, I have no problem paying it.
Yeah.
Even Soul Calibur, right? Like I just bought Soul Calibur 6 this week, and I bought the season pass before I even played the game.
Right.
But,
well, and I always, I feel like NetherRealm is usually really good with the DLC because it's usually a character.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're talking to costumes, but like it's usually a character that we're talking about.
Yeah. Turtles.
Which ironically, I never bought. I never bought the Turtles.
There's still time.
It's funny because like I thought like before Injustice 2 came out, I was like, man, I can't wait till those Turtles come out.
We
I'm
talked about it.
so excited.
We talked about it.
And like I bought every character but Turtles.
There's still time. Turtles in time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I bought Hellboy, but I only bought Hellboy because Hellboy was out and Turtles wasn't out. Yeah. I think if you asked me to choose between Turtles and Hellboy, I would have chosen Turtles. Absolutely.
Was it Ron Perlman?
It didn't seem like Ron Perlman.
Okay.
But I don't know a whole lot about Hellboy, so I'm not even sure why I bought that character. But
yeah,
it's funny because like now that I've been playing so much Mortal Kombat, I was wondering like I'm wondering how well my understanding of the workings of Mortal Kombat would carry over to Injustice.
I mean, they're definitely different.
Yeah. But like I'm willing to spend like I look at because the NetherRealm is selling the or I guess I should say Warner Brothers is selling the DLC for Mortal Kombat 11 like it's a season pass or what is it called?
Yeah, season pass.
For $40. And the only thing I know about it
$40.
The only thing I know about it is so I know Shang Tsung, Nightwolf, Sindel, Ash. So that we're thinking about $10 a character.
Yeah.
So I've paid $10 for a character before. I paid $10 for each. I paid $10 for each character that I bought in Injustice 2.
I think for season pass, regardless of what genre it is,
yeah.
If you expect people to pay for it, especially that amount,
sure,
that's almost the price of the game, right? That's
right.
2/3 the cost of the game.
Tell me everything that's in it.
Tell you everything that's in it. Now, does that mean that they have to reveal to you every character that's in it? No.
But it'd be like, this is how many characters you get.
You're going to get this many characters, you're going to get this mode and that mode. You know, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
otherwise I'm not buying.
And I'm very much like, so
like there's another Soul Calibur character dropping for this season, right?
Yeah.
That I've paid for. I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, but you know that.
But like,
I
know I'm going to get one more character.
So, and like, I think as far as buying because what I am apt to do is just buy each character piecemeal.
Yeah. I think that's smart. For me, I'll go for it when Street Fighter comes out with a new season pass or Soul Calibur or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay it. Whether I like that character or not,
sure.
I want the whole roster.
Yeah.
That's just how I am.
So, and like,
because like if you and me are hanging out and maybe you like that character, I want you to be able to play that character.
Yeah.
You know?
So from what I understand, and they've only said this is the case with Shang Tsung, but I have to imagine it's the case with all the characters that they're going to release over the life of the game.
Yeah.
Like the season pass gets you 1 week early access to that character.
That's significant in fighting games.
Yeah, so like that is the only thing that like
if you want to be competitive.
Yeah, that's the only thing that like I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
But then I also think about like at the level that I'm at, I don't imagine that week will make a difference.
Sure.
So
misstep in marketing too for that because they could have easily like tagged it more shang for your buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, and I'm excited about Nightwolf. less so about Sindel.
Did you see that tweet I sent you from Ed Boon? It's Ed Boon, Phil Spencer, and Maximilian Dude. Ed Boon puts out, like, would you like to see a Thunder skin?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Between, like, those three talking about it and then Double Helix also tweeting about it, pretty sure that's happening.
Yeah.
Which I don't care, but,
Sure.
like, it's cool.
I mean, I don't have the affinity for Chief Thunder to really.
Yeah.
I'd
I'd rather see a T-Hawk skin.
So I am apt to spend money on games I like, and then again, it's like money versus enjoyment that you get out of it,
Right.
Because I can see at this point, I spent $60 on that game.
Mm-hmm.
I have to imagine that by the time all those characters are released, I'll have spent $100 on that game.
Yeah.
And I feel that at this time, I've already gotten what I feel is $100 or $150 of value out of that game.
Yeah.
But then again, like, the conversion rate on time versus money isn't really work out that way, so I can't really say. But I think that the way that I'm apt to spend my money outside of bills is spending it on things that I think will make me happy,
Right.
or bring some kind of enjoyment to my life. And I think that I'm willing to pay whatever I have to have that. So, I'm very much into where NetherRealm is taking that franchise. I've heard mixed things on this, but I honestly consider, I love Mortal Kombat 9, but I honestly consider 11 to be the best of the modern era Mortal Kombats.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like it. I'm not as down on it as I was pre-launch.
Sure.
I think there's things that need to be fixed, and they can be fixed.
I very much enjoy the absence of Quan Chi.
But, like, you don't know, they might add him in.
Man, I hope not. That guy
Because,
sucks.
like,
they keep saying his name though, so
well,
maybe.
and it's not confirmed, but, like, a lot of people think NRS is going to support this longer than they support most of their other games. They support most of their games for a year,
Right.
which is not long enough for fighting games.
Right.
So there's potential for them to do a second season pass.
Right.
Will they? Who knows? I hope so.
If they do one, I can almost guarantee you that Quan Chi will be there.
And fighting games are so weird, right, with online communities, because there's some communities that you would expect to be thriving that are not, and communities that you expect to be dead that are still thriving.
Yeah.
Example, Third Strike Online, the one that released last gen.
Yeah.
I still find matches in that. I find more matches in that than I can find in the Street Fighter Anniversary version of Third Strike.
I wonder why that is.
Because it's a better version.
Are they balanced differently, or?
They are balanced differently in that the Third Strike you get with the Anniversary Collection is the arcade version.
I see.
You are getting the exact arcade version of all of those games.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, fighting games are weird.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, Fightcade, where you can play, like, basically any fighting game from any era online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fighting games are weird, but also a surface level examination or surface level observation of the communities of each of these games is it's interesting to look at. It's an interesting spectrum.
How is the Mortal Kombat community?
People are generally pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, people are generally pretty cool. And I compare what I've seen of the Smash community, and people seem less cool.
At a pro level, for sure.
But people seem generally pretty cool in the Mortal Kombat community. I can't really speak to, like, what's the Street Fighter community like?
I don't know. It seems okay. Like, I don't really chat with randoms on fighting games, you know? But, like, people seem pretty respectful. I think also Capcom did a smart thing by, like, making best of 3 a thing.
Sure.
So, like, because it's been a thing forever, but, like, actually implementing it into the game, I think, was smart, because then you don't have to worry about, is this guy going to be an asshole and dip or not?
Yeah, so...
sometimes they still do.
Yeah.
But...
So Mortal Kombat does 1st to 5.
Yeah.
And so if you put it on competitive, instead of going to casual, you put it on competitive.
Yeah.
Then when you match it with somebody, then it locks you into that 1st to 5.
Okay.
And then after that, then it'll, like, do you want to go to the next person?
Yeah.
Or do you want to quit? So it's really neat. But I was playing Mortal Kombat, and this guy was just like, I just heard him over the speakers, like, she's like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, pretty good. He's like, yeah, right on. I just got off work, so I just want to play some more. I was like, we just had this conversation of like, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I will say this: the absolute worst person in the Street Fighter V community is James Sandusky. He talks a lot of shit.
And
he does not back it up.
He cannot.
He is
the
worst.
His
address is.
He is. He's a very passionate. He's a very passionate but misguided Street Fighter player.
He is a fantastic Super Nintendo Killer Instinct player.
Sure, but I mean,
how many of those are there?
I mean,
all two of them.
The time that game's time has passed. Though, I will say this about James Sandusky.
Yeah.
As far as King of Fighters is concerned, he's also very bad.
I didn't even remember you guys played that together.
We played like a really quick set, and I kind of just wiped.
Which one?
Shit. I want to say
2002.
2002, probably.
Yeah. As far as the old ones, that seems to be where people go.
Yeah. And I mean, he cannot respond to Andy Bogart.
I love playing fighting games with James, man. I love it. Dang it. Oh, man.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. Beat him.
Yeah, just, play different games, Sandy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I think I can't foresee my enthusiasm for this sort of thing dying down anytime soon.
That's good.
And especially because I've never enjoyed watching competition and anything else as much as I enjoy watching. I remember I would sit there and I would watch hours of Street Fighter of people playing Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
Hours. And now when I'm at work, I'm watching literally hours of I'll find someone that I like, and I've been watching this one guy I told you about in Gun Show.
Yeah.
I've been watching him play Jax.
Oh, Jax, yeah.
Just Jax hours and hours.
I happened to watch one as well. It just happened to come across my YouTube feed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's him playing against other pros, and it's really cool.
I think that's the best thing about spectating video games is that you watch most other games, Dota or even some shooters, and it can be hard to understand what's going on if you don't also play that game.
Sure.
Whereas fighting games, what's happening. Even if you don't play video games, you know what's happening. To the extent that it would be entertaining.
Sure.
Yeah. I have not watched a lot of 5. That's interesting that you've watched a lot of 5. I've watched very little. I've watched a shit ton of 4 over the years, but very little 5.
If you go on Twitch, it's funny because you go on Twitch and you're there are a lot of tournaments.
Yeah.
But at any given time, you go on Twitch and there's some tournament happening.
Oh yeah.
And there's tournaments that you've never heard of, and it's just it's.
I mean, I tend to find myself going back and watching top 8s for the most part.
Sure.
But it's interesting because I feel like the newer era of fighting games, and not all of them, but a lot of the big ones have kind of slowed down and taken things back to basics.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's funny because so there's a play style called playing lame, which is not a bad thing, even though it would sound like a bad thing, right?
Should probably change the name,
And what it refers to is the way that Justin Wong plays, right? You play very defensively, you wait, and then you go in, and then you wait, and you do very basic things to go in, not any of these high combos. And that's what I feel like most modern fighting games seem to be when you're watching at a high level.
Yeah.
It's almost like taking turns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because I'll watch Mortal Kombat, and then there'll be someone who was blocking a combo, and then the next person
they block and they do their combo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the more modern fighting games that I like to watch are anime fighters.
Sure.
Really, Sure. But
I'm anxious to see what the Samurai Showdown scene is gonna look like.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see who's gonna be.
Samurai Showdown's gonna be boring to watch.
Yeah. No, I think it's gonna be fun.
I think it's gonna be fun to play.
I think it's I think what's gonna be fun about Samurai Showdown is I feel
damage.
Yeah, I think that because Samurai Showdown is just nothing but big damage and very decisive strikes.
Right.
And it'll be fun to watch who rises to the top of that.
Sure.
That being said,
Justin Wong.
Well, that being
He's
said,
gonna win it.
I think that if that game takes off,
Yeah.
then Square needs to stop fucking around. Give us another Bushido Blade. Toot sweet.
Yeah. There was another game that it's 2D. It's a 2D fighting game, indie game.
Nidhogg.
No, and it's one-hit kills, which I know Bushido Blade isn't always one-hit kills, but it pretty much is, right?
Yeah.
And it was similar. It looks god-awful, but I mean, it's taking a premise that has pretty much died. Like, nobody does that anymore, really.
Yeah.
I forget what it was called, though.
I just think that the last Bushido Blade we saw was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I want another one.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Square's gonna give us that.
Did somebody have a gun in that game?
I don't remember.
I think one of the bosses has a gun.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
so the last boss of the first Bushido Blade, he literally has a gun,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which which is so shitty because up to that entire point you've been fighting people with swords and
Yeah.
spears and stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you get to the guy who's like, no, I've just got a gun because we're in the 20th century, so I use a gun.
Yeah, I don't know if this character's existed in other Soul Caliburs, but there's like this like fucking wizard in Soul Calibur 6 who's got all these fucking fancy spells and shit flying all over the place, and here I am with swords.
Yeah. Yeah. Fighting games are
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
People who play them are also kind of weird. But it's a good time, and I don't need nothing but. So, Closing thoughts, Tom?
Sorry we've been talking so much about fighting games. Like, Ryan had brought up, like, he wanted to talk about fighting games, but we just did that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? We can do whatever the fuck we want. So I guess I'm not sorry.
I argue
But-
that if we could listen to Shanae talk about Kingdom Hearts for a decade, we
Yeah.
can talk about fighting games a few times.
Yeah. And expect probably more of it. Don't get me wrong. This channel is not turning into a specific genre channel.
Sure.
It's not.
It's just that,
But that's what we're into right now.
I just feel like most times Shanae is here with us.
Yeah.
And this is not a conversation that I feel like she can, I don't get the impression that she plays a lot of fighting games.
We need to have Berto on.
Yeah, we should have Berto on.
Because I know he's done like some locals and stuff like that.
Yeah. But like we typically want to shy away from conversations where one of us can't like really take part.
Yeah.
And so like when Shanae's not here, we talk about whatever we want.
Yeah.
So she's the one who decided to have a dad.
That's true. It's Father's Day, the day we're recording this. So
Yeah. So anyway, guys, once again, thank you for listening, watching, whatever.
yes.
We'll be back, whenever.
Yeah.
My name is Ryan. That's Tom.
Goodbye.
Later.